Hey everybody, John here for the esports department. I know some of you might have already seen, I already did a video today when I assumed that the slate we were going to go over was a 2-game slate. As it turns out, they decided to add a PCS game to the slate. I gotta be honest, we all make mistakes, and the longer that I've thought about this, the happier I am that they did it. My initial reaction was to be really annoyed about it. Not only are these not really related, I mean they're both kind of mid-season tournaments between regions, but one of them is China and Korea, some of the best regions in the world, some of the best teams in the world. Vietnam versus the PCS, not necessarily in that ballpark. So I was just kind of annoyed that they would throw that in there with a slate that everyone's going to watch. Everyone's going to be watching the Chinese and Korean slate. I didn't know why they would decide to do this, but you know what? The more that I think about it, it adds edge to the slate. It reduces the number of ties on the slate. It's going to give you some extra ROI in the long term. Fair enough. It's kind of annoying because I don't think there's a lot of people that really hard follow the PCS and the VCS. You can go get the stats, which I think is a big difference maker, but it's not like any of us really are super experts in the VCS and PCS. But I've got all the stats for you, so let's break it down. The first game on the slate, Talon against Team Flash. Talon minus 402, by far the biggest favorite on the slate. Team Flash, the biggest underdog on the slate at plus 273. Flash is the Vietnamese representative. Talon is the PCS representative. Projected kills in a win, 18.3 for Talon and 15.6 for Flash. So what this does for us that's cool, but also could end up hurting the slate in some ways, the biggest favorite on the slate is also the highest expectation team on the slate. So that makes lineup building very straightforward. The advantage that it gives you is that there's definitely a number of people that are not touching this research, and this is just the big edge right here. That there's at least 25-30% of the field that is just going to plug in teams from these games because that's what they know. They're going to ignore this game, and that's just what they're going to do. And as you can see, we have a pretty kind of standout team here. So second matchup of the day, FPX and JDG. FPX, a slight underdog. We didn't have odds when I did my video before, so it is kind of nice that we got to pick up odds for this. Plus 120 for FPX, small underdog. Minus 170 for JDG as a favorite. I'm a little bit surprised by this. FPX might have looked slightly better this tournament, but JDG did 3-0 them in the playoffs not that long ago and are the LPL champions. I'm a little bit surprised that they're only a minus 170 favorite. Expectations 16.6 for FPX and 17.4 for JDG. Third game of the slate, Gen G, a small underdog at plus 120 versus Top Esports at minus 170, the favorite. Expectations 15.3 for Gen G, 16.5 for Top Esports. This game, I'm guessing, just got some of its ownership shoved away. Let's talk ownership real quick. Normally, I would say if this was a normal slate, if these were all 3 LPL games and these were the odds and expectations, I would say Talon would be by far the highest owned team. I would step that back now just because of where this game is taking place and the fact that most people don't care about and aren't researching this region as hard. I do still think Talon will have very solid ownership on this slate. Flash, you would have to expect will be the lowest ownership, although something tells me that their ownership will be maybe a little bit inflated because if people don't want to research this game that much, they make a reasonable underdog. You're just like, it's the best team Vietnam versus best team PCS, maybe Vietnam does alright. So I don't think they're going to have nil ownership, but they're probably the lowest ownership on the slate given that they're plus 273. FPX and JDG, I would expect FPX to be the highest owned underdog on the slate. That makes sense to me. When I thought that the odds were going to be further for Gen G, I thought that Gen G would probably be more likely to be a higher underdog, but given that they come out the same and FPX has been pretty good in this tournament, depends how far back people look, but I'm guessing FPX or Gen G would be the highest owned underdog and probably pretty close in ownership given what ended up coming out odds-wise. JDG of these 4 teams, I'm guessing would definitely be the highest owned. I think people are going to see the same thing that I saw. They're going to look at these odds and go, well, they're only a slight favorite and they won 3-0 in the playoffs. Yeah, I think you'd see JDG as the highest ownership of these teams. Let's look at, so if you wanted to rank these teams real quick, Talon would be the highest expectation, JDG at number 2, FPX at number 3, Top at number 4, Flash at number 5, and Gen.G with the lowest expectation in wins. Going to kill participations, for the most part, I just quick run through these and just kind of look at what you can say about these teams. You're going to see a real stark contrast between Talon and Flash. Talon, very high kill participation team, and they are traditionally, throughout the course of the season, their games got bloodier and bloodier. Towards the beginning of the season, they were actually a really, really low kill team. I think through 4 weeks, they were averaging something like 12 kills per win. And then they had a lot of 20-something kill games coming in towards the end of the season. So, if anything, you might weight Talon's expectation. You might even go a little bit higher with it, given that they were bloodier towards the end of the season. But you can see they're an extremely high kill participation team at basically every position. Even their top laner at 65.8 is a big number for a top laner. Very high kill participation and a lot of kills expected in those games. Really hard to shy away from Talon. Team Flash, very low comparatively. This is one of the lowest kill participations I've ever seen on a mid laner. And they did go out and pick up another mid laner who has played some games in this tournament. They did bring Kati back in the last 3 games that they played, and they won that series, so I'm guessing they go back to Kati, but you'll probably see lineups for this coming from somewhere before this matchup starts. But you can see they're just generally a very low kill participation team, with the bot lane being a little heavier than the mid lane. They probably play towards bot with Yijin a fair bit more. We kind of talked about all these teams before, but JDG, we talked about with JDG versus some of the other teams, that they are more like a play towards bot type team. Huge kill participation from the jungler, and then the bot numbers bigger than mid or top, which differentiates them from some of these other teams like Gen.G, whereas you can see they're a mid jungle duo team. Very high numbers on the mid and jungle, lower on the bot lane. I said it in the last video as well, but it's a little bit weird because Ruler was traditionally like a hyper carry type player that would be very, very high kill participation. This team leans more towards BDD. So if you're going to go with Gen.G, definitely trying out BDD captains, I would always recommend. Might be a little bit worse to do it tonight since he was very good yesterday. People might have that fresh in their mind, but worth noting. FPX, also a team that's very mid-centric with Doinby. The thing that's fun about this one, though, is that they don't use the jungle. So they use mid-jungle synergy. You can see JDG goes jungle ganking bot, basically, or jungle being involved with bot. FPX is mid being involved with bot. It's Doinby getting on those roaming champions and roaming down towards bottom lane. So the jungle numbers for them fall off just a little bit. Top Esports, they're the night show. We talked about this before. It's mid-jungle again, but it's the night show. Easily the highest kill participation on the team, and if you're ever just like doing a small stack of top esports or something, Knight is the guy that should be in your lineup basically every time. Going through the comparisons, I have every team comparison set up. So if you're playing Fun plus Phoenix with top esports, the bot lane of FPX is where you want to be putting your focus, as well as the top side of the map for top esports. Top esports, and of course in the mid lane, this is one of the closest matchups you'll get for Knight. In fact, a lot of the mid laners in this tournament are very high kill participation with Doinby, Knight, and BDD. But so Doinby very rarely has a negative number here, but with Knight, he's going to. FPX paired with Gen.G, kind of like we were just talking about. Gen.G tends to play towards the mid lane and a bit towards the top lane, so you can see it's kind of the same story. The FPX bot lane has the advantage in kill participation numbers, while the top side of Gen.G is better. JDG with Gen.G. JDG lacking in the mid lane. They're paired with BDD. They're the only team of these 4 that is not a super strong mid lane team. I mean, Yagao is a very good player, but the other 3 are like arguably the 3 best mid laners in the world, or right in that conversation. So Yagao doesn't quite get his due when it comes to this, and his numbers really show it. JDG, like we talked about, a sort of jungle and bot lane focused team, so that's where you're going to want to go with them if paired with Gen G. When you pair JDG with top, very much the same type of thing. Knight dwarfs Yagao when it comes to those numbers, but JDG plays towards the bot lane significantly more often, so you focus there. FPX when paired with Talon. So Talon's, this is kind of, the information is a little bit more skewed when you deal with Talon and Flash, because Talon and Flash are so different in their kill participations. But you can see that Doinby is the only person on FPX. When compared with Talon, Doinby is the only person that's positive. So getting Doinby in your small stack of FPX, if you're going that way, is important. When pairing FPX with Flash, you'll notice some insane discrepancies in the mid lane with every team when you compare them with Flash, because that number is so small. But you can see that you have a pretty clear spot to be trying to get a Flash player in your lineup. If you play Flash, Khan, you can remove him and go ahead and take the top laner from Flash. JDG with Talon. Kind of same thing. JDG only has an advantage in one place because Talon's numbers are generally very high. Kanabi is your one spot where they have an advantage. If you were going to go with a second spot, the bottom lane of JDG does better comparatively than Yagao and Zoom. When putting JDG with Flash, you can see Yagao is the only person that's even under a plus 10 against their mid laner, but Kanabi stands out. Once again, Flash's top lane compares better than most of their other positions versus everyone. Gen G with Talon. Gen G also a very high kill participation team, so you can see they are negative in 3 out of 5 spots, but they do actually get the advantage in a couple places. It's worth noting. And actually, did I miss... Yeah, 71.8. Sorry, I hate to do this live, but I'm pretty sure that's a mistake. Yeah. 71.8. I didn't think that they... Oh, that's with Flash. Sorry, everybody. I'm trying to throw this thing together at the last moment here, and they are minus 4.8. So they're only positive in one position, which is BDD, which is what you'd expect. Glad I caught that tiny mistake. Everything else seems like it checks out. BDD, the only position where you can get an advantage with Gen G, which is very similar to Knight and very similar to what you'd come to expect. With Flash, let me fix my number since I screwed it up. Slater is 61.1. So it is a positive 5.6 for Ruler. So when pairing Gen G with Flash, you're going to get the advantages everywhere like we talked about. A monster number in the mid lane with BDD like you'd expect. This time support actually becomes the number one position where you can pick up a Flash player. Top is kind of what we've noticed with Flash, is that they're a good spot to play a small stack portion for them as top lane. Going with the last two, top esports with Talon. Same thing we've noticed very heavily. They're negative everywhere because Talon's so high. Knight in the mid lane pretty much always beats anybody that he's compared to, so they're pretty straightforward there. When putting top esports with Flash, same things we've seen before. It's the support position and the top position. So pretty much no matter who you're pairing with, either Flash or Talon, if you play those two teams, the kind of recipe is there for how to build. Keep in mind, if you're playing stuff like GPPs, find a small pivot. You know, you can do something like playing the AD carry from Flash instead of these two, which are the clear positions to play. Play the third best one. It's not that big of a difference, and it might get you significantly better ownership, so always keep that kind of stuff in mind when you're thinking about building for tonight. In general, if I was recommending cash stacks, Talon and JDG makes the most sense. Talon and top esports makes some sense. I think I'd go Talon JDG if I was playing cash. For GPPs, I think you can still play Talon because it's just so possible that so many people will not want to research this slate. I think Gen G makes a decent GPP play. I really kind of like FPX in a GPP. I think this format that they're going to go into for this best of 5 with a blind pick game sort of favors FPX. I think the first game is good for them. So FPX makes a lot of sense to me. And don't be afraid to try to get some good ownership on Team Flash. these teams play such different styles. It's very possible that Flash just comes out here and looks good today. So I wouldn't be too worried about putting Flash in some lineups, especially in something like the Titan either. So that's where I'd take my ownership for GPPs. I wouldn't enter something like Talon JDG or Talon TES in something like the Titan, probably. I'd stick to something a little bit lower owned. But that's a breakdown for you guys. Sorry, I know they've been short and sweet this week. I just have so much going on while I'm on vacation, trying to catch up with my siblings and my family. So glad to have this for you guys so we can all make a little bit of money tonight. I will talk to you guys later. Hit me up in the Discord. Hit me up on Twitter. Let's talk about the slate. What do you think about adding this? Let me know, guys, and I'll talk to you very soon. Bye-bye.